Today's episode is sponsored by Parsable. Parsible's connected worker solution bridges the gap between your frontline workers and the digital tools they need to excel. Visit them at parsable.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to get new episodes delivered to your inbox each week. I'm your host, Lawrence Mobes, editor at SME Media. I'm joined today by Parsable CEO Matt Belkin. Mr. Belkin, who has been described as a software veteran and proven tech entrepreneur, has scaled multiple businesses to billion-dollar valuations, and as Parsable CEO since 2022, he is now leading the effort to digitize frontline operations in global industries. Welcome to the show. Our topic today is digitization and the use of AI in manufacturing. But before we get started, Mr. Belkin, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your organization, Parsable?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited to be here. My first job was actually in manufacturing. When I was 10 years old, my dad ran a small record company, and I worked in the warehouse, shrink wrapping CDs, filling orders. And if I did a good job, I got to drive the forklift. It was pretty awesome. But that experience gave me a deep appreciation for the frontline workers and their critical role in manufacturing. And I saw how, even at that early stage, how technology adoption could make a huge impact on efficiency. As my dad's company began to use computers for finance, for inventory management, for marketing. And since then, I've been super fortunate to work at some of the most innovative technology companies in the world. You know, Adobe, Omniture, Domo, and most recently as the CEO of Parsable. So, the common thread across my professional experience, I've been at it for about 30 years now, has really been helping companies move from analog to digital processes. And it's incredibly powerful. Even when folks are resistant or initially resistant to change, I've seen firsthand how data and AI can transform how we work and just make it better. And, you asked about Parsable. At Parsable, we're on a mission to help manufacturers modernize their frontline operations. It's as simple as that, going from analog to digital. And, sort of an easy way to relate to it is it's like Google Maps for shop floor, right? It's guiding workers and managers to the most efficient outcomes, just like Google Maps provides you with directions to the most efficient route to your destination. It's very similar to that.
Very good. And that gives us a little information about Parsable, the company, and about you, of course. But Parsable, the software, and Parsable, the product, the solutions that it provides. You mentioned, guidance on the shop floor, but what are the biggest problems that Parsable solves?
Sure. Yeah, imagine you walk into a factory. What's one of the first things you see? It's paper. Paper is everywhere. And workers are collecting information with clipboards and pencils. And it's crazy when you think about it, because you go way back to the Industrial Revolution, the advent of assembly lines and the use of electricity to drive efficiency. They were using paper back then. In 120 years, we haven't evolved beyond paper. It's unbelievable. And when you consider that, frontline workers can use their cell phones to, check the weather halfway around the world, or you can order your dinner without ever leaving your house, but factories are still trapped in the past running on paper. It's lunacy. And it's not just inefficient, it's demoralizing for workers. Paper-based processes disconnect the shop floor from the top floor, and they leave managers and executives blind to what's actually happening. So this lack of visibility, it's a huge pervasive problem in manufacturing, and Parsable was founded to solve that problem, and we solve it by digitizing all of those paper-based processes, and we effectively replace those clipboards and binders, with digital workflows. And what's really interesting about this solution is it's not just software that drives efficiency, but it's more fulfilling to the frontline workers themselves. Think about this, right? My 8-year-old son loves technology, right? He's fascinated by things like his iPad and ChatGPT and all of the various technologies that are now available to him at his age. Now, imagine this. There's 2 factories. One uses a clipboard and pencil. The other has tablet and AI-powered tools like Parsable. Which one do you think he's going to want to work at? Right? That's why modernizing tools like Parsable, it's not just about efficiency. It's about creating workplaces that attract and retain the best talent.
I definitely can relate to all of that. But you talked a little bit. You mentioned digitization, of course. That's a huge focus. And AI, which you mentioned, is also a major focus in manufacturing and just about everywhere else, really. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see AI transforming manufacturing today?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. Look, AI isn't new. In fact, I was listening to some of your recent podcasts, and one of your other guests was also hitting on this. AI has been around for decades, and it's deeply integrated into our lives already. Like every day that you use Google to search for something, Amazon to buy something, Facebook recommends a friend that you should connect with. That's all AI driven, and it's been that way for decades. Similarly, AI in manufacturing has a tremendous number of present day applications. On the front line, we're already using AI at Parsable to deliver insights to workers in real time. And let me give you a perfect example of that. Imagine a frontline worker who's been at a factory for 20 years. It's very, very common. They understand their processes better than anyone else. They are a subject matter expert. Tremendous tribal knowledge, but their ability to gain insight and take action off of data that's collected and generated is usually quite challenging. They're not necessarily an expert data practitioner. They're not necessarily steeped in data literacy. But the beauty of AI is that you don't need to be. And AI can bridge that. And that's actually what we do today. So for example, using Parsable, you can actually type into Parsable in your own language, natural language query. You can say, hey, show me the deviations for the last shift. And in seconds, using AI, generative AI, a real-time dashboard is created for you that shows you what went wrong, where it went wrong, who was involved, how many hours or days that have been impacted, and what actions have been taken, right? And that's tremendously powerful, and it's a way that AI helps amplify the work that the frontline workers can do, it's truly transforming manufacturing right now.
Absolutely. And I hear everywhere about people touting the benefits of AI, but what are some of the challenges that you've encountered with digitization and incorporating AI?
I'd say most of the resistance is just practical knowledge. I like to talk a lot about theoretical versus practical AI. There's a tremendous amount of theoretical AI. We really focus on practical AI, which is AI focused on delivering specific measurable outcomes. So when folks are first introducing themselves to AI and they're curious about AI, they tend to get pretty enamored with the theoretical, and it's much harder to identify the practical. And that's where someone like Parsable and many others can certainly help because we've walked that path and we can show you the best practices for whatever opportunities that you're looking to optimize.
All right, now along with AI, the ongoing labor shortage has been another big focus in manufacturing. I hear about that everywhere. So what can you tell me about the labor shortage, and is this a concern that Parsable and AI can help with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Look, anyone listening to your podcast knows that we have a massive shortage of labor, right? Millions of workers that manufacturers just simply cannot find and cannot hire fast enough and train fast enough. And Parsable plays a unique role in helping them close this gap by simplifying the onboarding and enabling workers to be productive much faster. And it's quite intuitive if you think about it. If all of your processes are digitized and all of that tribal knowledge is captured, then not only can you take advantage of those repositories of information to more quickly onboard workers, but as one of our customers recently mentioned to me, it allows them to swim in a bigger talent pool because you can approach and attract workers with a much more diverse set of skills that historically you were able to because you've got all of these standardized processes and you have the ability to quickly upskill them. And another interesting angle of that I wanted to mention is that when you track when you have visibility into how work is done and who is doing work and how effectively they are doing it, that gives you a tremendous advantage in how you optimize your resources. So imagine someone goes out sick and you need to quickly identify the optimal resources to complete the day's work. Yeah, how do you do that, right? With AI and Parsable, what you can do is look algorithmically at the work that's already been done in the past and say, of everyone available to me, what is the optimal mix of folks doing which jobs on that particular day? And that's very difficult for a human to understand. And algorithms and AI are very naturally skilled and suited towards that purpose. So it's a very powerful way to address the labor shortage that's not always obvious to many manufacturers.
Now, something else that I've heard, for workers that are currently in the field, I know I've been hearing countless times about the fears that many workers have that AI ultimately is going to take away jobs. What's the truth behind this? I know that AI will help with the labor shortage in the ways you just mentioned, but will AI ultimately also take jobs away?
Yeah, there's always this fear. There's always this fear with technology. And look, AI isn't here to replace workers. It's here to make their jobs and arguably their lives better. Think of it like upgrading from a screwdriver to a power drill. You're still doing the work, but now it's faster, it's easier, it's more precise. It's exactly the same thing. It's something that we've seen, I think, very systemically across other applications of technology, where they've allowed us to move higher up in the value chain of what we're contributing. And I think, honestly, that's, when I speak to people in factories, when I even think introspectively about myself, I think that's what we all want to do. We all want to solve higher order problems and we all want to contribute higher order value. And AI allows us to do that.
That's very good to hear, of course. Now, I know that Parsable has been around long enough that no doubt you guys have had plenty of lessons learned. And certainly both Parsable and Parsible's users have had some big successes. Can you give us some examples of Parsable in action?
Sure. Yeah, Parsable, one of the fun things about digitizing is that, you can digitize almost any process in a factory, and Parsable supports hundreds and hundreds of use cases. It's as easy to use as, Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Right? It's a no-code environment. And if you can use, again, something like Microsoft Word, you can digitize processes in Parsable. And the reason that I say that is because once you start to digitize one process, it becomes incredibly easy to keep digitizing more and more and more. And that's what we see most of our customers do. And the economic benefit of that, as you can imagine, adds up very, very fast. Take, for example, so actually I'll say we work with hundreds of use cases, everything from safety to quality, logistics, maintenance, compliance, production, you name it. We're all across the shop floor. And take, for example, one of our customers in the building material space. We work with a lot of folks in that particular vertical. They're a $30 billion plus provider of building materials. And like a lot of manufacturers of building materials, they have very significant requirements for emissions that are audited by the EPA. So historically, when it was done on paper across, over 300 facilities, they were constantly fined because they were out of compliance, and they couldn't prove that they were actually complying with what is known as the Method 22 observations that are required daily by the EPA, and they couldn't prove it, right? And they couldn't objectively prove it. So what they did is digitize that process with Parsable across all of their U.S. sites, and that's over 300 facilities where they've done that. And it's 100% documented, and it's 100% auditable. And because of that, they have saved millions, literally millions in EPA fines, and they've had a dramatic improvement in their ESG target attainment. And they're also seeing workers that are much more engaged and much more productive. So it's been a win across multiple fronts, and that's just one example of hundreds that I could give you about how folks are leveraging new digital transformation tools like Parsable to improve their businesses and improve worker engagement.
Yeah, it sounds like that's some good results that I'm sure your customers definitely appreciate. Now, as far as a lot of companies, incorporating AI and digitization is still really, really new, scary territory, even for companies that have been very successful in the past. So what advice would you give to someone just starting their digitization journey?
Sure. Don't try to eat the elephant all at once. Start small, focus on one high impact process, similar to what I just described: safety audits, quality checks, shift handovers. One of our largest customers started with a simple clean and spec lube process, and now we're deployed in over 100 different sites across over 40 different use cases. And again, it just started with one. So the key here is, build that early momentum, celebrate the wins. And once your team starts seeing the benefits of digitization, they'll naturally and organically be excited to expand it across the factory floor. I was talking with one of our customers out in the UK not long ago, and he said, he's like, I've been in IT for 30 years. He said, I got to say that Parsable is the only platform where I've had a worker actually come up to me and say they were excited about using it. And that's the kind of culture that you want when you're trying to build a culture of transformation. And that takes time, and you really need to focus on those small wins and building that momentum. So that would be my guidance. Just in conclusion there, I'd also say, partnering with folks, again, like Parsable, it doesn't have to be us, but, we have seen a lot, and we have hundreds of best practices templates that you can take advantage of that instantly jumpstart your digitization of operations. And we can teach you how to fish to become more self-sustaining. And so if you're brand new at this, that would be, one of the most influential recommendations I'd give you is to partner with someone who's walked the path, and embrace it. It's a fun ride.
You almost can't look at anything in the world of manufacturing today and not see the excitement about digitization and about AI, of course. And you covered some of that for sure. But any last things that you would like to add that you haven't had the chance to mention so far that are on your mind?
I would say, just in conclusion, it's not about if you digitize, it's what you digitize next. And that needs to be the mentality, because you can't think about this as I'm going to stick to analog and everything's going to be okay. There is such an incredible opportunity for digitization that proactive mindset is what will be the difference maker for you as a manufacturer in retaining and expanding your competitive edge.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely seen that all over the place. And as you mentioned, the results and the excitement, both with digitization, tend to go hand in hand and grow exponentially. The more that goes on, the more possibility is able to be seen. So that's very good. Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Mr. Belkin, for joining us today. You shared a lot of great insights, and it's been very informative for me personally, of course, and I expect for our audience as well. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. I do have one last question for you. If listeners want to learn more about Parsable, where should they go to get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, first and foremost, for having me, Lawrence. It's been great chatting with you. And if you'd like to learn more about Parsable, you can always go to our website, parsable.com. If you'd ever like to chat, I am always available on LinkedIn. You can reach me there, and more than happy to share best practices about anything we talked about. Thanks so much.
All right, well, thank you very much for that and everything you were able to share today. And if anyone of our audience wants to learn more about the latest manufacturing trends and to hear more podcasts, you can subscribe to our podcast feed and, of course, visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org. Thank you.